Take from the top. Once again, guys, this is the Investor Show. As always, this is your host, Prince Dice, coming to you guys all the way live from Japan. It's a little early in the morning here, but as always, it's nice to have you guys on. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast and making the show so awesome. And if you're here on the YouTube channel, thank you. Have you make gifts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the other great stuff or whatnot. But as you guys can see in the title and in the description, I have a very, very special guest with me here today, all the way from Los Angeles, right?
Mountain View, actually, near Silicon Valley.
Oh, wow. Even better. Silicon Valley. First time from Silicon Valley. And we're so happy to have her here this morning. Well, it's this morning where she's at. It's morning for me, but it's Saturday morning for me, Friday morning for her. But we're glad to have her. And they kind of give her I know I can't do it just, but I will let her talk a little bit about herself. We have Miss Ellen Siminoff. Siminoff, am I saying that right?
Yes, you are.
Miss Ellen Siminoff. She is coming in. She is a investor, entrepreneur, extraordinaire that has done so much, with her history from being one of the founding executives from Yahoo, graduating from Stanford Business School, from Princeton, from Silicon Valley, all sorts of great things. I know I can't say it that much, but you guys can come to hear me talk. So I don't have a lot of time, and I definitely you guys don't have a lot of time. So we're going to jump straight into it. Miss Ellen, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Oh, definitely. So for the people out there who don't know you, can you tell us who you are and, how do you get to the point you're at today?
Sure. Well, first, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So if you're in Japan, that's in the middle of the country. Huge, and I'm a huge Green Bay Packer fan, so we just have to get that out.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, I left Wisconsin. I did my undergrad at Princeton. I actually have done much of the pre-med curriculum. But as I always tell students when I visit high schools, sometimes what you think you're going to do at 19 isn't really what you wind up doing. So I always like to send the message out there for any folks earlier in their career than that I am, that life can take you in a lot of different directions, and to sort of embrace that. I did my MBA out at Stanford, and sort of that's what helped me become an entrepreneur. I was part of the founding executive team at Yahoo, and I ran all of their business development, so doing a lot of deals at the company. And in a lot of ways, that was quite opportunistic for me, in that there weren't a lot of people who had experience doing many deals in Silicon Valley at that time. And so, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man or woman is king. So I had just a tremendous opportunity to work with a terrific team and help to grow Yahoo in the late 90s, early 2000s. I then had the fortunate opportunity to work with some terrific entrepreneurs at a company called Efficient Frontier. Efficient Frontier was in the algorithmic search engine marketing world, where Anil and Anand had come up with an awesome algorithm to help marketers monetize their search engine campaigns better than they could on their own. And this was just as Google's ecosystem was starting to develop. So it was just an awesome opportunity for me to work with them. I was the first CEO. We built that company. We had just a terrific team of folks, and eventually it was sold to Adobe for between $400 and $500 million. So it's a wonderful transaction. Not a lot of money raised. Shmoop came about. Shmoop is an online education publishing company. We own and build everything academic for K through community college. The founding of the company was based on the premise that education is too hard, too expensive, and that the materials available online were boring and really built for yesteryear. There's no advantage to online content, if it's the same boring stuff you can get in a textbook, that's just a delivery thing. And we loved building Shmoop, and we've loved doing it because I'm a parent now. So you talk about like the evolution of life and your career. And, Shmoop evolved because as a parent, I looked at the materials available for my children and I thought they were terrible. So we wanted to build funny, relevant, awesome materials built for the digital age. And that's what Shmoop is all about.
But that is truly amazing. So you said a lot, right, in such a small time. So how does this young lady from Milwaukee get into Princeton, go to Stanford, kick butt from there? And how do you go from Stanford to Silicon Valley, one of the founders of Yahoo? How does that happen?
I think being lucky and good matters a lot, and having awesome timing, I think you have to give a lot of credit for. For me, I liked Wisconsin a lot, but I didn't feel that there were terrific opportunities necessarily for me long term there. And I think as a youth, you have to try to figure out what your skill base was. I did well in school. Some people are awesome athletes. Some people are really funny. Some people are dramatic. So you kind of have to go with what you're good at. At the time, I thought it was medical, but I just loved the sciences. I liked math. I liked school, and I was willing to study really hard. And like many people who were able to, who have been able to achieve something or even get into universities, a lot of it has to do with being willing to make the sacrifice when you're in middle school and high school to not go out every night and study and try to give yourself an opportunity to be in a position to get lucky.
Okay. That's very awesome. Like you said, I know you hit on, you saying, hey, I want to be a pre-med student. And, to a lot of our listeners and followers and viewers out there, a lot of them are maybe inspiring entrepreneurs, or they already might be an entrepreneur. And how you said, hey, I was going into pre-med, and look how I ended up on, Silicon Valley, with an amazing company like Yahoo itself, and becoming one of the pioneers and help building the infrastructure to make deals with Yahoo. Now, like we went from Yahoo, then you got into Efficient Frontier, which was pretty much, like a Google AdWords, right? And
it was a marketing firm for Google AdWords. Okay. So that's very well put. It was to help marketers who wanted to buy on Google AdWords do it better.
Okay. And you build this company, and then you just sell it off to, you said Adobe, right?
Adobe, yeah.
For $400 to $500 million. That is, how does that happen?
Well, I think you have to partner with really good people, and we had terrific engineers, salespeople, a terrific board. I mean, just really good people. I think our engineers had built a differentiable product in that they had, they built a better mousetrap. And what I mean by that is, in the early stages of search, you could go onto Google and you could buy the word, book, and you could the world got more competitive, and you didn't know what to pay for the keyword book, and you didn't know if there were other words that might give you an equally good return on your dollar investment in marketing, and you didn't know when someone clicked on that keyword what they should go to on your site. So what our team was able to do was build a really good mathematical models in order to help marketers figure out what they should pay for, what they should pay, and what return they should get from their site for every word. What was awesome about what was built was that it's scaled. And what I mean by that is you could handle hundreds of thousands or millions of words. Because you and I might be able to put together a really good spreadsheet to optimize spend. against a small set of discrete words. But could we do it against a million? Maybe you could, but I couldn't. My spreadsheet would get too big, and I couldn't then rebid an hour later.
Okay. So pretty much you guys found a way to help marketers know what was working and what they can buy. And you found out a way to be able to scale it, meaning that put it on a massive scale, right?
Very well said. What we did was help marketers buy at scale extremely efficiently and effectively.
Okay. So you go off, you sell this company to Adobe. Now you start your own company, educational company, to educate and like innovate and make education more fun. What got you into this world?
So my husband actually came up with the idea. He was an English major in college, but hadn't really been doing much writing since. And then we had kids, and we were reading the book Call of the Wild with our daughter. And Call of the Wild is an awesome book. I don't know if you like dogs, but Buck the dog is the protagonist. And that's awesome, and it's just a great book. And we went online because we were internet people, and we discovered that everything online related to Call of the Wild was boring and basically a cheating site to teach you not to read, to teach you how to write an essay about Call of the Wild, but not to really write the essay about Call of the Wild. And we were really angry about it. So we thought, why can't we build a site where we would explain why you should care about Call of the Wild? And could we take really difficult topics and use stories and use funny language to help students learn? And we did when we started Shmoop, whether it was a really neat project or a business. And so we just put up a website, and 1 million people showed up. And what was really terrific about this is a lot of the people who showed up on our site were teachers and librarians, and they wrote us, and they said, we love what you're doing with Shmoop. Would you consider adding curriculum? Would you consider adding test prep products? Would you consider adding teacher materials? Because that would be really useful to us. So we continue to build Shmoop. What started out as a number of literature guides now contains over 500,000 pieces of content, including 300 courses, everything from pre-algebra, 36 weeks of it, to how to write a resume, to test prep for the ACT or the SAT. And everything we do is funny, built for the digital age, and meant to use storytelling and interesting topics to help students learn and teachers to teach.
Wow, that is, I mean, Ella, can you really miss anything? I mean, you go to, not only you get the Ivy League schools, not only you go to Silicon Valley, then you build your own company. It's just amazing how you constantly like re-innovating yourself and keeping yourself new and new challenging ideas and stuff like that. That is truly amazing itself. Now, being on Silicon Valley, how long have you been on Silicon Valley?
Well, I'd like to tell you just 5 years, because then you think I might be 21. But I've been there now over 20 years. So I started at Yahoo at the end of 95, early 96. So I guess that's sadly over 20 years. But I've really sort of seen Silicon Valley adopt, evolve, change.
So now for the people out there who are unfamiliar with Silicon Valley, what is Silicon Valley? What is it known for? How is life on Silicon Valley? Because I have personally never been to Silicon Valley, but I've heard about it. I always thought I was going to make a trip there. But what is it like? Because I know that's the home of it's the home of tech. The Apples and the Microsoft and stuff like that. What is the home of?
home is Redmond, which is up in Washington, but we do have Apple and Google here. It's funny when people used to want a tour of Yahoo. We'd give them a tour, and it was pretty boring because all you really saw was people, computers, and sometimes servers, and we didn't even have the servers that directly served the site there. So there wasn't really much to see. If you want to do like a really fun tour, you want to go to see Disney, or you want to go to see Pixar, or you want to go and see. At least if you go to Coca-Cola, you get to taste Coca-Cola from around the world. So Silicon Valley is really, in a lot of ways, just a lot of cool buildings where neat ideas have come from. In terms of living here, I would say it's a very innovative culture. But the biggest thing I see is like the impact on the children. So children in our area think it's perfectly normal and great to study robotics at a very early age, to study coding, to be really excited about science projects. And that's something I would like to see at schools all around the country, around the world, in fact, is kids at a very early age getting to love math, science, writing, but also like being involved in things that are really innovative. I think it's sort of part of the culture here, and hence it's become part of the educational system. And you'd love to see that in every state, where at a very early age, kids get pretty excited about things like that.
Also, it's kind of fun that you say that about the kids there in Silicon Valley, how innovation is kind of like cool, robots and electronics. I interviewed a guy, investor out of Hong Kong by the name of Julian So, and he was giving his theory was that, hey, what a genius is has changed over time. He was like, years ago or decades ago, the person who could retain a lot of data and who could remember a lot of stuff was kind of considered a genius. If you had a photographic memory, who could retain a lot of information, people consider you pretty smart. And he was like, due to computers, now you got phones, you have tablets, you have all this technology that helps you find your information. So the person who can retain information is not as smart, that moved into the next era. He was like, the next era was a person who can build mechanics and bridges and infrastructure. And he, long story short, he was saying today he feels though the geniuses of our time are the people who can innovate. The people who can, like Silicon Valley, the people who come out and create the Facebooks of the world and create the Apple and the iPhones and the tablets. So he's like, I feel like that's the new geniuses of our time are the people who innovate. And it's funny that you say that there in Silicon Valley, it's a culture of innovation is just playing with robots is a everyday thing. People think that's perfectly normal. So I think that that's kind of not funny, but I would say it's kind of I kind of like tied them together. I would say. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think what you raised are some really interesting points. The first one is, you're right, memorization is not king. For example, when I grew up, I used to do spelling bees, and they still do spelling bees today. But the reality is, you really need to be a perfect speller. Not really. I mean, you need to get close enough that you can type it in Google and look it up, and they can autocorrect. But I don't know that many people think of spelling as the most important thing to do. At the same time, I also don't think you need to memorize the periodic table. You need to have a really good understanding of how it works. I think that you should understand your multiplication and your basic factors, but do you have to memorize every trigonometric function? Probably not. It is what you do with it. And that's how this country is going to be more competitive if we can innovate and build on top of things. Just raw horsepower of intelligence doesn't get you as much as being able to come up with a practical solution that helps people. Remember when Google started, it was the 6th best search engine. We're number 6. I mean, that's not really a rallying cry. But they came up with a better way to get people really good search results. When Mark Zuckerberg started, Facebook, There was MySpace, there was Friendster. I mean, there were other companies out there that tried to bring people together, but Mark innovated and made it a platform where people could join Facebook, but a lot of companies could develop on top of Facebook. That was a huge innovation and allowed him to scale and grow. So I think that just memorizing, you're right, isn't the best way to demonstrate intelligence. The way to be successful is to come up with something people need and want and come up with a really easy product to use to get there. I think that's the most exciting thing. The other thing I think that's significant about Silicon Valley is we're allowed to fail here. In most worlds, you're not allowed to fail. So one of the neat things is we always talk here, fail, but fail fast. So you'll find quite a few entrepreneurs have had opportunities that didn't work out perfectly, but they learned something from it, and they moved on to the next thing. If you look at a lot of the people who were at Google in the early days, they had come from Netscape. Netscape had failed, but you had a really good team of people who loved the internet, were very good with technology, and Google was growing out of that old ecosystem.
Wow, that is true. When you come to think about it, that is true. In Silicon Valley, you kind of get the image of, hey, people working on technology, people trying to use different things, and they fail at it. It doesn't work. It's like, okay, cool. They go on to the next thing. They try to find out how to do something else. But when you look at the world of, like, let's say, for example, finance, or you look at the world of, education or something like that, if you fail, it's regarded as a horrible thing. That's a pretty interesting fact, that you made there, that, in Silicon Valley, it's like, hey, we're going to try this out. We're working on this new innovative idea. Maybe it's a new app or a new piece of a gadget or whatever the case may be. And that now you kind of look at it as a way to, you fail fast, you learn fast, and everybody's learning off each other. Now, one question I do have for you, being in technology, being in Silicon Valley, knowing your extensive history, knowing about innovation, every time I see innovation come along, it does less and less with humans, which is fine, which is cool. Like we had Blockbuster at one time, now we have Netflix, but it was a lot of people that worked at Blockbuster. Now it's not that many people who work at Netflix, but it's a product that made us easier. And if we keep moving in this direction to where, 20 years ago, everybody used to go to the bank and use bank tellers. Now, a lot of us use our phones and our apps and our laptops to transfer money, move money around in ATMs. As we move along and we keep up with this trend, right, that we're doing more and more with less people, what are people going to be doing for a living in the future?
I think you raise a really good point. It's why people should be studying hard in school, taking a lot of math and science, and learning how to communicate. I don't think it's just about building, great computer models. I think people need to know how to communicate. But you do look at the workforce. Many of the jobs today that are simple service are going to go away. I don't think anybody doubts that. It is a better experience to just go to an ATM and pull out cash than have to wait in line for someone. I drive on toll roads here. And when I pay a toll, something you can buy a little gadget and your car, and you can drive right through and don't have to be in line. I don't think anyone doubts that that's a positive experience. When you go to the airport, being able to just have your boarding pass on your phone and walk through is a positive experience. So the kind of skills the next generation workforce is going to need are very different than some of the things we've seen today. I don't think anybody has a brilliant answer for it, because you don't need 1 million people to oil the computer robot. I mean, you need other things, but I think obviously skills such as communication, I think being able to speak different languages I think is very valuable. I get that there's a lot of translation tools out there, but just translating is the same as having a really good conversation. So I think being able to cross borders and be able to talk to people from different cultures and different languages is going to be important. And certainly all the technical skills that we've been talking about are really important.
Oh,
and that's one of the things we really try to do, because I think there's a lot of politics behind education, and it's a very emotional subject in every country. But I think there are many things we can all agree on. Most parents want their children to have a better opportunity in life than they had for themselves. No matter how successful the parents are, there are very few parents who don't want more for their kids. The best way to provide more is through education. You might be an awesome golfer or a great basketball star, and that can get you there. But that's even funny. On Shmoop, we have a whole careers area where we talk about 500 different careers and the skills you need to do to get there and what you need to do to be successful at it. And that's one of the things we very much try to do, is we try to make the materials and curriculum and the test prep products egalitarian, so that students, no matter what their economic opportunity are, can have very inexpensively awesome products and awesome materials, because you're going to need that to get a leg up, because it is an increasingly competitive world. And if you don't have good materials, if you don't have a good education, if you can't get yourself to the next level, you're competing against the ATM machine and the robot.
Wow, that's very true. Because I was kind of always saying that, like you said, it is a better experience. It's definitely a better experience that, hey, I don't have to go and drive and stand in line and wait on an ATM. I can just pull up to I can just either get on my app, or I can just go to the ATM and just take out money and move right along with my life, which is cool, great for the customer. But what about Sally, the bank teller? What about, like you said, the airport? It is a great experience to be able to go to the airport and just walk through with your phone and don't have to worry about a boarding pass and standing in line and all this other stuff like that you can just easily move to the airport. But what about the person who's in baggage claims and the person these service jobs, like you were saying? Even secretary jobs are starting to becoming major threats because of virtual assistants, because of what's going on. So that's a very interesting fact, and I hope that the people that are out listening, and the parents that are out listening, and even the young adults that are out listening, of this evolving world of educating yourself and making education more fun. Now, like what you said about Shmoop, right? About how that's how I said, right? Shmoop.
Shmoop. You need an M.
I need an M. That would go Shmoop. Sorry about that, right? But the educational piece of the house, that, I've been to the site, I've seen some of the material that's there, and I like the way it looks, and I like the way it makes education funny and fun, versus when you think of school, you think of big elaborate words and all these words, and it becomes scary. So why do you think the education system is so political?
Because there's a lot of money involved. Whenever there's money, it gets political, because you're talking about resources. Whenever you have something that's distributed and controlled at some point by the government, it is at some point political. What's interesting for me, and I don't have a point of view on the politics of it, I just want to help educate kids, is I travel to a lot of schools, from Florida to Washington, so that's about as cross-country as you can get. And every teacher I meet is sincerely excited about trying to help their kids. Nobody goes into teaching in order to make a ton of money. People come to Silicon Valley to do well financially. People go into teaching because they want to help kids. And so I feel like teachers are being asked to do a ton of stuff in today's world, but they don't always have the best resources to do it. And they kind of get caught in the politics of it all. But I found that you have a ton of people in the educator world who are just dying to help kids improve. The second thing is, measurement is, I think sometimes we measure against a standard across the country. We compare ourselves to other countries. We compare to where we were before, over time. I mean, there are a lot of ways to control, and I don't think anybody has on, any standard. And I think many of the arguments about it is, how do you measure success, and how do you know when you're making improvement?
Okay. Now, I'm pretty much gathering that, you go to different schools, people like what you do, they love your product, like, this is freaking awesome. I would love to implement this into my classroom. I wonder, can I take this to my principal, maybe my superintendent or program director, or whatever the case may be. And the principal or program director says, hey, no, we only can do it this way. We got to do it this way because XYZ, everything gets so political, but you're like, hey, but this works and it helps, and we know that this is an awesome thing. Why can't we implement this into school? And then that's when everything gets all messy. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, what's fortunate for us is we have 15 million people a month who just come to Shmoop because they like us. We don't do advertising. I don't buy the keywords that I learned how to buy at Efficient Frontier. Just build a really good site, and people come, and there are a lot of people who just subscribe to our premium products, our SAT prep, our AP prep, our courses, just because they need to do well on an exam, or they want to learn a certain subject area. And then there are lots of schools and districts that work with us because they have specific problems they need to solve, be it a test for a state exam or better math skills for their kids. We're very flexible about it. We try to work really hard with schools to make sure we're serving the students and the teachers trying to help them.
Okay. Now, I had a question for you. Now, someone who's tuned in, who's listening, and who wants to go to Silicon Valley, maybe they're in college, or maybe they're out of college, or whatever, maybe they're a veteran, whatever the case may be, and they love Silicon Valley. They want to get into Silicon Valley. What advice would you give to them?
Don't worry necessarily where you're working for at the beginning. Just work at a company where you like the people and you think you're going to get a good opportunity. Don't worry if the first thing you do totally fails. Do it quickly and move on. Don't spend 10 years on a failing thing, but be quick about it and find, something to do that's exciting for you. The next thing is, if there's a way you can find something that you really enjoy and it's a service you really like, I think you'll be better at it. There are a lot of products that came out of people's needs. So, for example, eBay started because Pierre, liked Beanie Babies and was collecting them. So, it obviously evolved beyond that tremendously. There are a lot of products today that I didn't know I needed, but I love. And I think other people would have that approach. And if you can work for a company that does something you love, you're going to be better at it. So Shmoop, most of the people who work here are pretty excited about education, educating kids, have a good sense of humor. I like people with a good sense of humor. But there are a lot of neat companies. I didn't know, I would have never thought to build Lyft or Uber, but now I don't know what I could have done, how I lived without them. So they're definitely products that if you love and you use, maybe there's a way to get behind.
Okay, now that's very awesome idea of like, hey, start with things that start with a good team. That's going to give you a good opportunity. Now, on the entrepreneur aspect of the house, from the outside looking in, it's a lot of venture capitalists, people throwing money around, investing into these new technology companies that we've never heard of, and whatever the case may be. So let's say you have another entrepreneur out there who has a piece of technology, or they have an idea, like you did with building all your companies, from going from the Frontier to all the way to Shmoop, going all the way to Yahoo, all these different companies. If they wanted to find funding, or if they wanted to get funding, or they think that they need funding, what would you tell that particular person?
Well, there's certainly a lot of venture capital companies out here that you could approach. I think there are three things you need to do to get points on the board to get someone interested in your company. And you don't have to do all three of them, but you have to do one of them. One is have really good traction in terms of consumers or users. The more users you have, the more people have heard of you, the more they're going to want to invest. The second is have a real business model where people can envision that you could make money. You don't have to be making a ton of money, but if you can show you can get a customer or something or someone to pay, obviously that has a lot. And third is some sort of business development deal for distribution, for content, for something. So that what I call it is you put points on the board, you show signs of traction, you show a vision for where you're going. The other thing people should realize is money isn't free. So when people give you money, they're not doing it because they're nice people. They're doing it because they have they want a return on their investment. So you want to make sure when you take money, you take the right amount, but at the early stages of a company, that money is really expensive because you're going to take a big percentage of your company, and you won't be left with much. So you want to try to get as far along as you can with your company before you have to get financing, if that's possible, and that's not always possible.
Okay, that's very smart that you said that because I did an interview. I interviewed Wally Famous Amos, the cookie legend, and he was a prime example of taking money. Not early in the game. He made good money in the beginning, but taking money from investors and not understanding what equity was. You say, hey, we got this problem and I can fix it with $5 million. Somebody gives me $5 million. I can fix a problem, but they don't know that you just gave away 10, 20% of your company.
Exactly.
So
people don't read their term sheets, and people really should read their term sheet. Shmoop has a good finance area. We actually walk through a lot about some basic things we think everybody should know about finance. I think financial literacy really important in today's world. And if someone gives you a term sheet, read the term sheet. Not all term sheets are the same.
Wow. So you actually teach that as well to help out. I mean, that's something that, I might want to read myself. So
really fun. My husband did it, and there's lots of great video.
Okay. Definitely have to check that out. Now, going forward, with everything that you've done so far, the amazing career that you had so far, most people would say if they had a fraction of your success, they would go off into the hills, into the sunset, and retire. What keeps you going every day?
Well, I mean, my father is in his 80s, and he's a doctor, and I don't even think he's retired. He still likes to read about medical innovation, and I'm sure he reads EKGs and echoes all the time. So the question is, what are you going to do with your time? If you're going to go retire and help people in some way, I think that's great. To go retire, to sit around. I mean, what was interesting about Shmoop is we started Shmoop when our kids were really young because it was an awesome business to do while our kids were growing up. And now what's awesome about Shmoop is my kids are mostly grown up, not all the way there. It's an awesome thing to do as my kids leave the house. You want to do something exciting. You need to have a reason to get up in the morning. And you need to feel like you're really contributing. Fortunately, with medical innovation, people are living longer and longer. You want to make sure you're productive in those years. My golf game just isn't good enough to spend all day doing that.
That's pretty cool. Now, going back over your life, like you said, what keeps you going? That's a pretty interesting point when you say, hey, you pretty much say, hey, I'm too young to retire. I have so much more life to give. Now, looking back over your life, is there a point or something that happened that you was like, I wish I could have changed this, or I would have done something differently? What is something you would probably consider like one of your biggest, not failures, but mistakes or lessons that you had learned along life that you could pass out there to the younger you?
Well, that second semester of organic chemistry probably didn't get me as far as I thought. But my dad said it would would help me down the line. It hasn't really helped me down the line, but we're always optimistic. Have you ever watched a time travel movie and you mess with the space-time continuum and you mess everything up? So my husband and I always joke about this because we say, if you had asked us 25 years ago if where we are today makes you happy, and the answer is absolutely yes. So then you don't want to nitpick along the way because you might mess up the whole space-time continuum.
Okay. Now, so pretty much you say, hey, everything happened for a reason and it had its own place.
Absolutely. I think everything happened for a reason, and I think it gets you on a certain path. If you didn't do the things you did, you wouldn't wind up where you are. So, for example, when I was 17 years old, I thought I would stay in Wisconsin. I thought I would go to medical school. I didn't know if I'd be married. I certainly didn't know if I'd have kids. And I certainly didn't know that I would be entrepreneurial. So pretty much every assumption I had at 17 was wrong, but it worked out okay. So sometimes you just have to sort of take what life brings you and make course corrections and adjust. But because it's very rare that you have a straight line of exactly what you thought would happen and have it work out perfectly.
Okay. Now, I know we talked about, the business. We talked about your businesses, your past, your success, all the other great stuff. Now I want to ask the question of, what is a day in the life of Ellen? What does Ellen like to do?
I get up pretty early, actually. I get up around, I don't know, people would tell you they get emails from me at 5:30. And my husband always makes me a cup of coffee. So he's very good he's very picky about coffee. And one of the things he always does is make me coffee. I usually work out for about an hour. I run or I do the elliptical or I go to a gym. I take that really seriously. I'm fighting age, and age is winning, so I have to work out. I do a bunch of emails in the morning. I like to chat with my kids before they go to school to find out what's going on in the day. And then I come to Shmoop. A lot of times I come here, I work with our engineers, I work with our product people, I work with our sales people, obviously with finance and things like that. Sometimes really good creative ideas. Sometimes I have to travel where I'm on the road, where I get to go meet with teachers and superintendents in schools. And then, come home, eat dinner, hang out, watch The Big Bang Theory. Usually in bed by 9. So I'm now.
You serious? You watch The Big Bang Theory?
I love The Big Bang Theory. I like Sheldon.
That is pretty funny, being in Silicon Valley and all that stuff like that. I guess it would be equivalent to someone on Wall Street was watching The Wolf of Wall Street if it was a TV show or something like that.
Oh, that was actually a good movie. I liked that movie. I also, during football season, I watch football. In fact, my son and I have been to 25 stadiums. We started when he was 6.
Oh, wow.
And here we go to 2 to 3 football stadiums. We watch a game. We eat a food representative of the city, and we see something significant in the city. So in New York, we went to Ellis Island and we ate bagels. But the key of it is that you have to eat a food representative of the city that doesn't require a tie. Because my son says it ruins the whole paradigm of a football trip if you have to wear a tie. So like in Cincinnati, we ate chili because that's what you eat in Cincinnati, and there are 2 famous chili places, so we had to check them out. When we were in Philadelphia, there's this huge argument over Pat's and Gino's, which has the better cheesesteak. So one of us went to one, the other went to the other, and we met in the middle to evaluate the cheesesteak situation. And then we went to a game, and we went to see the Liberty Bell. So anyway, I do this. So we're through 25 stadiums. There's been some consolidation, so there are only 30. We have 5 left, and then I'm going to send them off to college.
Now I got to ask you this question. Being a Pats fan, being a football fan, I want to talk to Packers, not Pats. I don't know why not Pats.
No, Packers.
The reason why I was thinking about that, going into the question of, what did you think of the Super Bowl?
Oh, gosh, that was incredible. I actually I felt bad for Atlanta. I was watching that last drive, and the drive before, while they were in theory running up the clock, and I kept saying to my husband, and none of the commentators have talked about this, is ahead of not even running the ball, they didn't manage the clock well. So Matt Ryan would have the ball snapped, and there'd be like 20 seconds remaining on the clock before he did it. So there was like a minute that was blown even before the end when they didn't run it. And I just kept looking at Dave and Ben and Sophie and saying, why aren't they running the ball? But it was, I actually felt bad for Atlanta, but on the other hand, kudos to the Patriots. That was one heck of a comeback.
Wow. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome Super Bowl on the expense of the Atlanta Falcons.
It was one of those. If it had been the Packers, I think on either side, I would have had trouble recovering from that. But because I wasn't as emotionally involved, I could enjoy the game just for enjoying the game. And so enjoying that game was like one of the best football games I've ever seen. And actually, if you're a tennis fan, a few weeks before, you had seen Federer have one of the awesome comebacks of all time. So there's actually been some great sports on recently.
I tell people 2017 is the year of comebacks. You had the Cubs down 3-1.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA Finals was down 3-1.
Hey, I live up near Golden State, so that one's a little sensitive.
Exactly, right there in Silicon Valley. You had look at the Pats down 28-3 late in the third. And even in tennis, I'm like, this is the year of the comeback. So I was like, I seen a lot of people that was like, Golden State got this. They're up 3-1. They just got to win one more game. This is over. Atlanta just got to run the ball a couple of times, and this is over or whatnot. And look what happened. Even with the Cubs, they were down 3-1. They got the curse going on, all of the stuff like that. And I was like, wow. Even in college football with Clemson,
that's right.
Being down the whole game against Alabama.
Yeah, there have been some awesome comeback kids. So it's never over till it's over.
Mm-hmm. So definitely, that's when I kind of correlated. Like, man, I've seen a lot of people that was down, but just hanging in there and continuing to fight. 2017 is the year to come back. That's why I tell people, I was like, I haven't seen this many comebacks.
Well, my daughter plays golf, and she is an awesome back nine golfer. So, but not as good a front nine golfer. So I actually get the concept of, staying in it. As long as you can stay in it, you can always come back at the end.
That's true. And I tell people that are related to entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And, you're out there trying. Yeah, speaking of that, like you always say, come back, and people are like, hey, I just need to hang in there. Is there a point, or how do you know when it's time to just hang it up? Like, hey, this isn't working. There's no comebacking in this. I just need to move on.
Yeah, it's usually not as big. With companies, you can always feel that. There's, a lot of times people will bail, and they'll bail too early. I think of it less as like a company thing than a project thing. Like, sometimes you make a bad hire, and you just have to admit you did it and work it out so they're not there anymore. And it's always disappointing, but you can't be embarrassed about that. You just have to move on. Same thing with a project. You thought a product would work, and if people don't go to it and people don't like it, you got to figure out something else. So I think you'll see it's usually less like where it's like a failure or a success, as it's more discrete, independent decisions need to be tweaked.
Okay, so you pretty much just say, hey, follow the numbers and just watch the numbers. If the numbers, say, hey, this is not working, then, fail fast and move on to the next thing. Okay. So that's a pretty awesome story, that you shared. And I definitely like having the sports commentary in there as well. Didn't know you was a Packers fan. I should have kind of put two and two together, being from Milwaukee. But, some people, I know a lot of people from Georgia that are Cowboys fans, or they're from Virginia and they're Cowboys fans. So it's just, It's different. So, and I had a question for you. Going into this year, 2018, who's going to be your Super Bowl pick?
Oh, I always pick the Packers.
Who they going to play?
Oh, who will they play? I'm thinking. I think Pittsburgh. I think Roethlisberger will make another run.
One last run for Roethlisberger? Big Ben?
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll have a repeat.
So you're gonna count out Terrific Tom?
Oh, I think it's time. Someone else needs a shot.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think we'll ever count them out, but
now I wanted to ask you one last thing. Is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners and viewers around the world? What is something that you would like to? Is there anything you would like to leave with? Anything you would like to?
Oh, say? I just if you're trying to do something, I give you credit. It's hard. Don't be discouraged. And I love to get people's stories. So send a note to me at alan@shmoop.com and let me know what you're doing. I always like to hear about it.
Okay, so pretty much telling people to keep going. And as you guys, I will put her email address in the description box so you can see her email that she just said. If you want to email her your story, if you heard something here and it inspired you of seeing Ellen go from Milwaukee all the way to Silicon Valley. And Facebook is in Silicon Valley too, right? All right.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. So, and that is true with the tours. I did take a tour of, I was at Goldman Sachs in Wall Street last summer. And, you watch the movies, you see all the other stuff, but then you get there and it's pretty much like you said, a bunch of computers and people chomping on the computer. You're like, this is not as fun as
it's all automated. Stock exchange. It's fun.
And it's kind of fun that you said that about like Yahoo and the big Silicon Valley companies there. You're like, hey, you go there, it's just not a whole lot to see, and this server is really not connected to this, and stuff like that. So, but that's congratulations on all of your success. I will definitely have your website, into your website, your email address, her contact information to better see her on the YouTube channel, the Facebook pages, and Twitter and Instagrams, and all of the great stuff like that. Definitely, it was a pleasure of having you stop by and speak about everything. Is there anything else you want to say? You want to clear on that?
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Definitely. Thank you for stopping by the Investor Show. It was nice to have you. As always, guys, this is the Investor Show. My name is Prince Dykes. Until the next video, until the next podcast, or wherever you might see me, peace, be safe, and I'm out. Thank you.